What's going on, everybody? I'm the best that is, the best that was, the best that ever will be there. But none before me, and there'll be none after me. Therefore, I am the one and only Jay Covey. And welcome to Wrestling Made Simple, episode 100. Hell yeah, we made it. Episode 100. It's going to be a fun episode. We got your SmackDown Raw reviews, followed by a prediction for this Saturday's Backlash. And then I have something special in the review tactics. Not one, but two reviews. One of Backlash 2018, considered one of the worst backlashes of all time. I will get into that later. But also a review of a whole promotion. That's right, I'm going to be reviewing Lucha Underground. One of my favorite promotions that went away way too soon. And then we have a reading from the Book of Rules, your drink of the week. No Battle Droid of the week. There's going to be something special at the end, so stay tuned. But let's get into SmackDown this week. And SmackDown kicked off with the first round of the draft. I love the draft, man. I know people are giving it shit, but I loved the draft. I thought the draft was so fun. Especially they did it so smartly of having it right after the first round of the NFL draft, during the second round of the NFL draft as well. So I kind of had it on my TV and on my computer at the same time, watching both, trying to make sure that my team selected who I wanted, and also that WWE was going the way I wanted to. But I'll go into the picks later on. Let's go into the matches as LA Knight faced Butch in a very good match. It was actually good to see LA Knight actually come out and get the win here. LA Knight was able to beat Butch. Good match, nothing great, nothing to write home about, but it's good to see LA Knight actually getting a bit of a win here. Sad to see it come at Butch's expense. I would have rather seen it come at Ridge Holland's expense, but that's just me. We then had the second round as RVD, Rob Van Dam, and Michael Hayes, Napes, came out into the picks as well again later on. I'll go over the draft after my Raw review. We then got Zelina Vega versus Sonya Deville. Zelina Vega was able to pick up the win. They're really pushing her as a good face here. It's very weird to see her as a face because you were going for her as a heel from Andrade to when she managed Andrade and Angel Garza to when she managed Angel Garza and Austin Theory to when she went back to just Andrade to just going out on her own and then being a tag team with Zelina, winning the being a tag team with Carmella. By the way, shout out to Carmella and Corey Graves, who are having a baby. Congratulations to them. But you would have her team up with Carmella, win the Queen's Crown tournament, become Queen Zelina, then come back, manage Legado del Fantasma as a heel, and then turn face when joining the LWO. So it's very fun to see her as a face when her whole career has been heel. After the match, Rhea Ripley tried to attack Zelina Vega, and Chelsea Green tried to interfere, but Zelina hit Rhea with a DDT, and Rhea actually said, Saturday, you're done, pretzel. I don't know what that means, but okay, it was funny to hear. We then get AJ Styles returning from injury. AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Michin Mia Yim made their debuts on SmackDown. The Viking Raiders came out, and then the OC laid them out. Styles then hit a phenomenal forearm. So that was awesome to see. It's good to see Styles back from injury, man. We then get Shinsuke Nakamura getting interviewed backstage as Karrion Kross attacks Shinsuke Nakamura, and the match will take place on next week's Go Home with SmackDown for Backlash. That was very cool to see. But also at the same time, what's the point of the draft if you're just going to have them have a match on next week's SmackDown? Just my question. We then get your main event of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the Usos in a rematch for the tag team titles. Great match, really had me on the edge of my seat for every single fall because you're wondering, will Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens defend their titles in Saudi Arabia, where Sami Zayn is not supposed to be because I believe he's Iranian. So yeah, makes you wonder. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were able to pick up the win. Unbelievable match. Great job by them. Really, it deserved the main event of SmackDown. Hell, deserved the main event of a pay-per-view, and that's why they main evented WrestleMania Night 1. But a great SmackDown nonetheless. Really enjoyed this SmackDown. It was fun. It had all the great moments that a draft should have. Unsuspected picks from NXT and everything, which, again, I'll go over later. But also really had the moments of, in the matches as well, like Zelina Vega and Sonya Deville was some great matches, because I thought they would give Sonya Deville maybe a win over Zelina with Rhea Ripley interfering. But it makes Zelina Vega a challenger for any women's title going forward. I really liked that. We then move on to Raw. As Raw kicked off with Triple H coming out to do all the picks for the first round of the draft that night. I'll get into it later, but he did announce that Brock Lesnar would be a free agent. So Brock Lesnar is a free agent in WWE and could go to whatever show he likes. Paul Heyman would then come out and said the World Heavyweight Championship will look so good and relevant around the waist of the Tribal Chief. Please, God, no. God, no, don't do it. He then made fun of Seth Rollins, saying he's a clown and everything. Seth Rollins then came out and said he's going to become the World Heavyweight Champion at Night of Champions, and will show people what a real world champion is. Heyman then called Roman on the phone, and Seth then said, well, it's going to be hard to hear the talk when you got all these people singing, and then the crowd started singing Seth Rollins' song, which was awesome. You then had Paul Heyman yelling, I can't hear my Tribal Chief! Hilarious. It was a very funny segment. Seth Rollins then threatened to stomp Paul Heyman. Then you had Solo Sikoa come in, make the save. It was then announced for your main event, you would have Solo Sikoa versus Seth Rollins. Excited for that match. We then get Damage Control versus the Women's Tag Team Champions, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Damage Control was able to pick up the win here. That was very shocking. Kind of makes you wonder what's going on with the women's tag division. I mean, 50-50 booking. We sure Vince McMahon isn't in charge still? Apparently not, but hey. We think of Braun Strowman and Ricochet versus Alpha Academy with Maxine Dupree at ringside. I guess she's managing both of them now? I don't know. Braun Strowman and Ricochet would pick up the win after a very hard-fought match. Good on them. Great match by Braun Strowman and Ricochet. I really like how they've gelled together as a team. Oh, we then get Matt Riddle versus Jimmy Uso in an okay match. Nothing to write home about. Matt Riddle, since returning, has really done nothing for me. Matt Riddle was able to pick up the win. It was better on the outside with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn than with them in the ring. Just saying. We then get Shinsuke Nakamura appearing on Miz TV and mocked The Miz for having tiny balls. Yay, yay. Can we end this gimmick yet? Miz tried to beat the shit out of Shinsuke, but we all know how that would win. Shinsuke Nakamura ends up hitting Miz with the King Shaza. I want to point out, I truly do believe this is the first time that Shinsuke has been a Raw branded guy since coming to the main event. Since coming to the main roster. I truly believe that. So, very cool to see Shinsuke on Raw. We then get Omos versus a local talent of Anthony Alanis. Huh. Almost beat him in like 2 seconds. It was easy. We then get the Judgment Day coming out to face the LWO. Dominic would give a promo here, and I got a little heat for it on Twitter because I truly felt this was go away heat, but people are saying I'm wrong. So you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't go away heat. Maybe Dominic is truly something to be reckoned with on Monday Night Raw as a heel. I didn't see it, but maybe I'm wrong. It would be cool to see him truly be a Mysterio lineage, you know? I would truly love to see it. We then get the Judgment Day versus LWO, and I was very happy with this 6-man mixed gender tag team match. I usually don't like mixed tag team matches. I usually hate them. But, and this is the biggest but I'll give tonight, they made the right call with the ending of Damian Priest hitting South of Heaven on Rey Mysterio for the win. Here's why I like that, because that makes Damian Priest. Damian Priest was the only one who didn't have a match at WrestleMania, was the only one who really wasn't doing much at WrestleMania. He interfered in a couple matches, yeah, but that was it. Damian Priest needed that moment. Damian Priest needed a moment to prove he is a true star. And that was it. That was your moment, Damian, and you just got it. So I truly hope that they build off of that and give Damian the momentum he should have. We then get your next round of picks, and then we get the main event, Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa. Great match, and it actually ended the way I would want it to end, in a DQ. Here's why I wanted it to end in a DQ, because it really protects both guys. Who are you going to have lose? You're going to have your possible new world champion, or the guy who you're picking as the next big monster for WWE. I mean, it would really screw over both people if they lose. So, right call, but it was very funny because they actually ran out of time on Raw. USA cut to their Race to Survive Alaska, and I laughed my ass off at that. I thought that was hilarious, but at the same time, I wish they just got a few more seconds just to show the brawl. It brawls to end Raw, and you get, which was very funny. I thought this was very funny to end Raw. But that's how Raw went off the air. It was a very good Raw. The draft, I know people are kind of shitting on it. I enjoyed it. But let's look at the rosters and how they picked up after the draft. So here are the rosters right now. Raw has Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, Matt Riddle, Bronson Reed, Ricochet, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, Chad Gable, Otis, The Miz, Gunther, Giovanni Vinci. I want to point out that SmackDown's ring announcer is also going over to Raw, so we keep getting that awesome Imperium intro. Ludwig Kaiser, Mansoor, Marseille, Eric and Ivar, Apollo Crews, Johnny Gargano, Dexter Lumis, JD McDonough, Veer Sangha, Jinder Mahal, Riddick Moss, who is former Madcap Moss, back to Riddick Moss. I can't tell you how happy I am about that one. Angel, Humberto, Akira Tozawa, and Odyssey Jones on the men's side. Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, Trish Stratus, Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, India Hartwell, Natalya, Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville, Zoe Stark, Valhalla, Katana Chance, Kaden Carter, Xia Li, Tegan Knox, Nikki Cross, Dana Brooke, Piper Niven, Emma, and Maxine Dupree on the women's side. And that is your Raw roster after the draft. Woo! Let's move on to SmackDown as you got Roman Reigns, Edge, AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, Solo Sikoa, Rey Mysterio, Austin Theory, Sheamus, LA Knight, Rich Holland, Butch, Karrion Kross, Montez Ford, Cameron Grimes to the moon. Yeah. Santos Escobar, Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, basically the LWO, Angelo Dawkins, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Ashante 3, Adonis Top Dollar, Elton Prince, Kit Wilson, and the man, the myth, the legend, Grayson Waller. And on the women's side, you get Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Asuka, Dakota Kai, Io Sky, Zelina Vega, Michin, Mia Yim, Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, Shotzi, Lacey Evans, Scarlett, B-Fab, and Tamina on SmackDown. We then get your free agents of Brock Lesnar, Omos, Baron Corbin, Zion Quinn, Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin, MVP, Mustafa Ali, Dolph Ziggler, and Von Wagner. Woo! There is your draft. Oh, I do want to point out they did have special presenters for everything. They had Teddy Long, RVD, again, Michael P.S. Hayes, Napes. You had Shawn Michaels, which was awesome. Him, Adam Pearce. Everything that happened in the draft was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I know people are giving it shit, but I thought it was very funny. So, shout out to that. But after all that, we built to Backlash, ladies and gentlemen. Backlash Puerto Rico. Let's look at the matches as Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn versus the bloodline of Solo Sikoa, Jey Uso, and Jimmy Uso. So I see Jimmy Uso or Jey Uso getting pinned in this. Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn are going to win. And Solo Sikoa will attack one of the Usos, causing them to break up that part of the bloodline. And then maybe you get the Usos actually going after the tag team titles or the Undisputed title. You think of Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar, they should make this no DQ match. Just want to say that right now. I think Cody Rhodes is going to win. 10 men, I learned this week, 10 men have pinned Brock Lesnar in a singles match. Have pinned or submitted. And the names that are with it are unbelievable. All Hall of Famers, basically. So, Cody Rhodes, time to add your name to this list and become number 11. Rhea Ripley versus Zelina Vega for SmackDown Women's Championship. That is probably going to become a Raw Women's Championship. I see Rhea Ripley win this. Be cool for Zelina Vega, but I don't see that happening. Seth freaking Rollins versus Omos. Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is going to pick up the win. Austin Theory versus Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed. Since the Intercontinental title is now on Raw, and the United States title is now on SmackDown, I see Bobby Lashley winning this, so Austin Theory can go into the Universal title picture, but it's going to take a while for Austin Theory to get that credibility. Just want to say that right now. Bianca Belair versus Io Sky for the Raw Women's Championship, which is probably going to become the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bianca Belair is going to retain here, and that's going to lead to a breakup of Damage Control. And finally, the last match announced, Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest in a San Juan street fight. Bad Bunny's going to pick up the win here. They're going to go with a celebrity, and a celebrity who can wrestle. There is no question that he can wrestle. So, just want to point that out. But that's my predictions for Backlash, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into a review. This review is of Backlash 2018, the first by brand or dual brand pay-per-view since WrestleMania, or since WrestleMania Battleground 2016. So this was the first really dual pay-per-view, dual branded pay-per-view in 2 years that wasn't a big 4 pay-per-view. We get kicked off with Ruby Riott, basically. Ruby Riott and the Riott Squad versus Bayley. This was a bad choice. Ruby Riott should have gone to like a DQ or something. They basically sacrificed Bayley here to go over. Ruby Riott picks up the win here. I'm not mad, but at the same time, it should have been a DQ or something. We then get your own, what's called the only good match of the night of Seth Rollins versus The Miz. This was for the IC title, a rematch from WrestleMania 34. Seth Rollins would pick up the win here in a 20-minute classic. They had a great match, so people are always saying like they were shocked when Seth Rollins and The Miz had a good match on Raw a couple weeks ago. Why? They had a great match here. This was the only good match of the night. Just want to point that out. We then get Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. This was a 10-minute match, and I believe Little Miss Bliss will actually get injured in this match with one of her first real concussions, keeping her out till Money in the Bank, where she would win Money in the Bank, cash in, but this kind of just really started Nia Jax's downfall here, because she would go on to lose the Raw Women's Championship at Money in the Bank to Little Miss Bliss in a cash-in, and she would never get that title back. She would have a run with the tag team titles, but that would be it. She would have a run with Sonya Deville, or not Sonya Deville, Shayna Baszler, I apologize. And that would be it for her. After they would lose those titles, she would be released, and that would be it for Nia Jax. So this kind of started Nia Jax's downfall here. We then get Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton in a United States Championship match. Randy Orton, who lost the title at WrestleMania to Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal would lose the title to Jeff Hardy on his first match at Raw before Jeff Hardy got switched over to SmackDown. And then they would have a match at Super Showdown, I think it was. It was either Super Showdown or Super Showdown. And Jeff Hardy would beat Randy Orton here in this match. Very good match. Definitely not the match of the night. That still goes to Seth Rollins and The Miz, but what are you going to do? We then get Daniel Bryan in really his first singles match back on pay-per-view, where he faced Big Cass. Anything that could go wrong, this feud did. This was Big Cass's basically last singles feud in the company. He would be released shortly after that due to his alcoholism, unfortunately, and his poor work ethic. It's good to see Big Cass clean sober and actually having a great run in AEW. I really wish they would bring in Enzo for him, because I actually loved the Enzo and Cass story. I thought it was awesome. And I wish they had gotten tag team gold before they split them up. But Daniel Bryan would pick up the win here. They would have one last match at Money in the Bank, and then Cass would be released. We then get Carmella and Charlotte Flair in WWE SmackDown Women's Tag Team match. Women's Championship match, I apologize. Carmella would pick up the win here. This was not... It's funny watching it because I was a Carmella fan going into this and going through her original title reign, but now that I've watched it, I understand why this title reign isn't as liked as I thought it was. She was the first ever Money in the Bank winner, and she would finally cash it in after almost a year of holding it. She would defend it twice. She would defend it 4 times, twice against Asuka and twice against Charlotte Flair before dropping it. I can't remember to who. I'm sure it'll come back to me later on. God, who would she drop it to? Yeah. Oh, she would drop it to Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam. That's what happened. in a triple threat match, and now would begin the beginning of the match. So you can actually thank Carmella for giving us what Becky Lynch is now today. But still not a great match. We then get your 21-minute no DQ WWE Championship match, AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura, which ended in a draw for them not being able to answer the ref's 10 count for basically kicking each other in the balls too much. Yeah. Let's continue down this downward spiral. We then get Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley, a tag team match versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Good match. It would actually lead to a feud between Braun Strowman and Kevin Owens, and a feud between Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley, which would actually keep Sami Zayn out for basically almost a year after Money in the Bank, as he would tear, I believe, his meniscus in his knee. He would break something in his leg that would keep him out for over a year of wrestling. So this match is good for that. Of Braun Strowman would have a cool feud with Kevin Owens in a steel cage match for Money in the Bank, and then beating Kevin Owens at SummerSlam to win, to keep his Money in the Bank contract, and then move on to face Roman Reigns inside Hell in a Cell, which is one of the worst Hell in a Cell main events ever. We then get your main event, which has been panned by critics. It was just terrible, of Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe. This is when they were pushing Roman Reigns down your throats. Hey, stop it. We don't want him. And you would have him versus Samoa Joe, a returning Samoa Joe, which could have been a cool feud, but just never worked out. You would just have to deal with it, grit your teeth, and Samoa Joe would lose this match by pinfall. Actually, half the crowd would leave, and the other half, because this took place in Newark, New Jersey, one of my home arenas, you would have the crowd chanting for Enzo Amore, who had been released earlier in the year, who was a Jersey boy, which is why I don't understand why Daniel Bryan went over Big Cass, but already talked about that. So you would have Roman Reigns defeat Samoa Joe in a terrible match. Basically, the only good match on this card is Seth Rollins versus The Miz in the IC title match. After that, everything else is shit. So, this is not a Backlash pay-per-view go watch. If I had to give it a grade D-, and the only reason it escapes the F grade is because of Seth Rollins and The Miz. That's it. Ugh, where's my drink? And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to do something I have never done before and may never do again. This is a 100th episode special. I'm going to look back at Lucha Underground. I became a huge fan of Lucha Underground through its run. The original run was amazing. I loved all 4 seasons. I thought it was fun. I thought it was different. The only season that was kind of bit downhill was season 3, but at the same time, it still was awesome. Unfortunately, though, it had its very big issues. One of the brainchilds of Rey Mysterio and Conan, and actually Shark Tank fame and producer Mark Burnett, who would produce a bunch of shows as well. This would air on the El Rey network, and would actually also, you could get on Netflix, Amazon Prime. It was on Tubi for a while, and it was on Apple TV. It is now basically on Prime Video and Apple TV, where you do have to pay for it, but it is something to look back and watch. The roster was unbelievably stacked. Your first main event would be Johnny Mundo, who is John Morrison, Johnny Impact, Johnny 10,000 Names, basically, versus Prince Puma, who would go on to become Ricochet in WWE. And these two would have feuds in this ring to basically rival Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. These guys worked so well together, and I wish if they want to make Ricochet a star, here's what you do. Have him win the United States Championship or the IC title. Have him win that. And then bring back John Morrison and have him have a feud for WrestleMania. And just say, don't even give him a script. Just say, go. Just go. And do what you guys do best. Because these two perfectly clash. John Morrison was in his prime in Lucha Underground. You would have people like Santos Escobar, who was King Cuerno. You would have Cage, who was Nick Cage in Impact, or Brian Cage in Impact. You would have all these great people. You would have Alberto El Patron, who was Alberto Del Rio in WWE. And you would have just these unbelievable wrestlers come in. Tejano, a former AEW champion. Jake Hagar, who was Jake Strong. You would have the basically American emergence of Pentagon and Rey Fenix. And the first season was basically all around Prince Puma and Conan, who was his manager, versus either Johnny Mundo or Mil Muertes. Mil Muertes was kind of their version of The Undertaker. It was cool to see. He had an awesome valet who was named Katrina. And Katrina was a former manager in WWE. She did very well there. And basically, you would have on commentary, you would have the legend Vampiro and the legend Matt Striker, who I truly believe got a raw deal in the announcing in the IWC world. I think Matt Striker's awesome on the commentary. I think he provides something fun. So that's just me. But so the feuds would basically be, the main feuds to pay attention to in Season 1 are Johnny Mundo and Prince Puma, and then you would have Johnny Mundo go on a feud with Alberto El Patron, and Prince Puma go on a feud with Mil Muertes for Ultima Lucha, which was their WrestleMania. Ultima Lucha would be the one that everyone competes for. It was very fun to see. Ultima Lucha was, the first Ultima Lucha was 2 nights, the second one was 3 nights, the third one was 4 nights, and then they went back to the 2 nights. So we kind of see where WrestleMania got their ideas. Hint, hint. Just a joke, just a joke. The first night would actually be Cage versus Willie Mack, so you would have the Mack, which was awesome. Willie Mack would be awesome in this. He would have a great match with Cage in a Falls Count Anywhere match. You would have the Disciples of Death versus, for the Trios title, which was a 3-person tag. They wouldn't have regular tag team matches. They would have 3-person tags. So 6-man tag team match of championships. And this actually made me a fan of 6-man tag team matches. I hate 6-man tag team matches. You would have Angelico, Ivelisse, and Son of Havoc, better known as Matt Cross, who I believe is one of the best independent wrestlers in the world. In a Tornado tag team match, awesome match, the Disciples of Death would pick up the win there. Then you would have Drago, of Impact fame versus Hernandez of Impact fame in a Believers Backlash match, which was basically the Believers got to bring weapons and the Believers actually got to hit everyone with their weapons. They would only hit Hernandez, who was a devious heel in this. So you'd have Hernandez there. You would then have a $100,000 10-man battle royal, which was okay. Nothing really very home about. But then you would have Johnny Mundo versus Alberto El Patron, where Melina would return. Someone who we basically haven't seen in wrestling for a while would return to help Johnny Mundo. This is when they were still a couple. Alberto El Patron would lose. Johnny Mundo would pick up the win. And unfortunately, after this, Alberto El Patron would go back to WWE. That was their biggest problem. They would just have people leave, but they would explain it well. Of like, oh no, you didn't hear? Gang jumped him outside the temple. He's gone. You would then have what is called one of the best matches in Lucha Underground, the Cero Miedo match. No disqualification, no holds barred, anything would go. A Vampiro versus Pentagon Jr. this would be one of the storylines that would continue through Lucha Underground for the whole fucking show. You would have Pentagon Jr. pick up the win over Vampiro, and then Pentagon Jr. for the whole time of Season 1 would be breaking arms as a tribute to his master. Now, no one knew who that was until this match where Vampiro finally said, "You've been looking for your master for so long. You found him as your master. I say you are ready, my son." So that was very cool to see. You would then get a 7-way title match for the inaugural Gift of the Gods. Now, the Gift of the Gods was basically their Money in the Bank. It was a cool title of where you would compete in a match and win a medallion. You would then put the medallion in the title of the Gift of the Gods, and then you were able to compete for the title later on. It was usually in a ladder match, or in a tag team, or in a 7-way match, or in a battle royal. You would have Phoenix become your first ever title holder, and you would have him compete against Aerostar, Big Rick, who is formerly Ezekiel Jackson. Ezekiel Jackson was also a big part of this first season. I want to point that out. Ezekiel Jackson would be Big Rick and would introduce the Crew, who would be basically Dario Cueto, the owner of Lucha Underground, basically the Vince McMahon character's muscle. He would throw them in whenever he wanted someone to lose, whenever someone needed to get their ass kicked, the Crew would show up. It would be people like Jack Evans, King Cuerno who is now Santos Escobar in WWE, and Sexy Star, who is, since we're blacklisted from wrestling, but she would actually be a huge part of this as well. You would then get Blue Demon Jr. versus Tejano. El Tejano Jr., a former AAA champion. This roster was stacked. Blue Demon Jr. would pick up the win in a no DQ match with help from the Crew. And then you would get your first Lucha Underground Ultimate Lucha main event, which was Mil Muertes versus Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground title. Great match. These two really tore the house down, and that's what they needed to keep this show going. I'll be reviewing mostly Ultimate Lucha because that was their building point for this, for the whole series, was to build to Ultima Lucha. Mil Muertes would then take the title and really make... So they would hold the Trios titles and the Ultima and the Lucha Underground title. Phoenix would hold the Gift of the Gods title and would go on to later cash it in against Mil Muertes and before what was called Aztec Warfare, which would declare usually the number one contender, but we never got that, as it would basically just declare the Lucha Underground champion. So you would have Phoenix cash in on Mil Muertes and win, and Phoenix would enter number one in Aztec Warfare to defend his title. He would lose, and it's supposed to be 20 entrants. The clock would just continue on, but also what was talked about was the number 2 entrant. The number 2 entrant to Ultima Lucha would be the King, the man who made Lucha famous, Rey Mysterio Jr. He would enter Aztec Warfare and this would start the ultimate, basically, story of Lucha Underground for Rey Mysterio, as how do you have Lucha without the King, man? So that was very cool to see, and it would lead to an Ultima Lucha match for the decade. First, you would get the Falls Count Anywhere match of the tournament for a unique opportunity of Willie Mack versus The Cage. Willie Mack would pick up the win. You would then get a bar fight match between Son of Havoc and Tejano for a unique opportunity. Son of Havoc would then defeat the Mac for the unique opportunity, which was basically you would get a shot at main eventing Ultima Lucha Trace or $1 million. So if Havoc chose to main event, and they would say, yeah, you get it if you could defeat Dr. Wagner Jr., a lucha wrestler, basically of fame in Mexico. Unbelievable lucha wrestler who has come from lineage upon lineage, same as Blue Demon. Dr. Wagner would pick up the win, and Son of Havoc would never get his main event. We then get part 2 of Ultima Lucha Dos, which was the 7-way elimination match for the Gift of the Gods. It would be Sexy Star versus Marty Martinez and Mariposa. Now, Marty Martinez, he is a pivotal part of Lucha Underground, which I will go into now. Of Lucha Underground is supposed to be of Aztec descent, and Marty the Moth says he came from the Moth tribe and has Aztec blood flowing through him, and he hates Sexy Star, hates her with a passion. That's why he sent his sister Mariposa after Sexy Star, and they would have a no mas match for the ages, which just means no more. I'm done. So it's basically an I quit match, no mas. And her and Mariposa, that match would be unbelievable. It's still talked about to this day. So if you're looking for a great match, go look up the no mas match. Sexy Star would win the Gift of the Gods Championship and would go on to defend it and lose it to Johnny Mundo in Season 3 before winning the Lucha Underground title from Dario Cueto's brother. I'll get into that in the main event. You would have Mil Muertes versus King Cuerno in a death match. Mil Muertes would pick up the win over King Cuerno. Great match, very fun to see. This was a feud that was building through Ultimate Lucha, or Aztec Warfare. You would have Pentagon kind of help eliminate Mil Muertes by King Cuerno, and after the feud of Pentagon had breezed over, he went after his revenge of King Cuerno, and you get this death match, which was awesome. Mil Muertes should have been a bigger star coming out of this. I just wanted to let that be known. You then get the trios match for Lucha Underground Championship as Aerostar, Drago, and Phoenix would win the titles from Jack Evans, Johnny Mundo, and PJ Black, which would be named the Worldwide Underground. Now, PJ Black, the former, not Alex Riley. God, I can't remember, but he was in WWE. Hang on. Is this going to bug me? PJ Black, former Justin Gabriel. So, yeah, one of the most iconic RKOs of all time of Justin Gabriel going to the top rope and Randy Orton hitting that RKO in midair. So, shout out to them. Would become the Worldwide Underground with Taya Valkyrie, as Johnny Mundo's girlfriend at the time, later wife, would also be a part of the Worldwide Underground. So the Aerostar, Phoenix, and Drago would take their titles after a long feud with them. It was very cool to see this because they would actually call them the Avengers or the Heroes or Justice League. They would call them like all that because these were all people who basically looked like superheroes. You would have Aerostar, who looks like Iron Man, Ray Phoenix, who basically is a phoenix, and then you would have Drago, who's basically a dragon. It was cool to see that. I really enjoyed that. You would then have El Dragon Azteca Jr. versus Black Lotus. Now, this was an okay match. It was El Dragon Jr. El Dragon Azteca Jr. was supposed to be one of the main stars of this, but he just wasn't up to the caliber of wrestling as they thought he was. So, you would have him kind of be in there for the title picture, but not as he should be. Black Lotus was supposed to be one of the main feuds for Dario Cueto, but they ended up having her join Dario Cueto, which was very cool to see. It ended in no contest, probably one of the few times that ever happened in Lucha Underground. You would then have Matanza Cueto versus Pentagon Dark. Now, Pentagon Dark had gone through torture basically with Vampiro to basically becoming from Pentagon Jr. to Pentagon Dark, which is something I actually wish he had kept in his independent run. I wish he had kept that name. I love that name. Matanza Cueto was the brother of Dario Cueto, basically a god amongst men was the storyline, and Dario Cueto would keep him locked in a cage, which is why for the whole series you're watching, you're wondering, what's that key for? It is to control Matanza Cueto. And Matanza was basically Brock Lesnar, unbeatable. His move, Sacrifice to the Gods, was unbelievable, or Wrath of the Gods was unbelievably strong. Only few people had ever kicked out of it. One was Pentagon Jr. So, Matanza Cueto would come in at Aztec Warfare, which was their version of the Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble for them was basically, it's not thrown over a top rope. It's 20 people come in at certain times, and whoever pins, you either get pinned or submitted. You don't get thrown over a top rope. You have to be pinned or submitted to be eliminated. So Matanza Cueto would come in at number 21, wreck shit, leave, take the title, and would hold on to it even till the next Aztec Warfare. He would beat Pentagon Dark here, and this would lead to Pentagon Dark turning on Vampiro and starting a feud that would last until Ultima Lucha Cuatro. You would then get Taya versus Ivelisse. Now, Ivelisse was feuding with Taya at this point because she had cost him the Trios title rematch against the Worldwide Underground, so you would have Ivelisse versus Taya. Taya would win after Katrina, who had basically been feuding with Ivelisse since Season 1, got involved. Taya would pick up the win, and it would lead to Ivelisse on the first episode of Season 3 saying, Ultima Lucha Trace, I'm making the challenge right now. I don't care what happens. I don't care if I'm holding a title or not. Katrina, it's you and me. And that would basically be Ivelisse's whole feud through Ultima Lucha through Lucha Underground Season 3. And for your main event of Ultima Lucha 2, it was a dream match. And I don't know why they haven't done this more on WWE TV with both men being in the fold, of Prince Puma versus Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio versus Prince Puma was basically just to see if Rey Mysterio could still go. To see if Rey Mysterio was still the Rey Mysterio of old, and he won that match unbelievably. Prince Puma and him shake hands. It was kind of a main event of just, hey, this is just respect. I just want to fight you just to see if I can beat the best of all time, and I want to fight you to see if I can beat the best of now. It was a great match, and truly was something to behold. So, that's one that you should always truly love. Watch that match. Oh, God, we're only halfway through. Cheers, drinking a beer. By the way, I will have a drink of the week. We'll get there. We then have Ultima Lucha Cuatro. Now, Ultima Lucha Trace was following the longest season of Lucha Underground. There would be so many tournaments. There would be all this shit going down to decide who would be the number one contender for Ultima Lucha Trace for the Lucha Underground title. Johnny Mundo would end up winning it after Sexy Star won it at Aztec Warfare. Johnny Mundo would then cash in his gift of the gods 2 weeks later, and Taya would basically cost Sexy Star her title. I'll get into that later on. So Johnny Mundo is your champion, and Prince Puma would win the number one contenders match. He would would win the number one contenders title and would then go on to face Johnny Mundo in the main event of Ultima Lucha Tres. Just want that. So you would get your two basically guys who made Lucha Underground fighting for the title. Now, this was a 4-night event. That's right, 4-night event. They would have it stretched over 4 weeks, so I thought that was very cool. This was kind of them jumping the shark. This was the shark for Lucha Underground. After this, everything would be cut. The budget would be cut. They would actually have to move from the temple because that would be rented out for some reason. And they would then move on to something else, move on to another temple, and it would never be the same after this. Just want to say that. So, first match would be Dr. Wagner Jr. versus Tejano, with Famous B helping Dr. Wagner Jr. It was basically a handicap match. Now, the reason for this was Famous B had turned from a wrestler to a manager and wanted to represent Tejano. Tejano was basically saying, I just don't want you to manage me. I want to just go for whatever I can. I thought that was a cool thing, but at the same time, it just didn't make sense for them not to have this match. So Dr. Wagner Jr. would come out, and him and Famous B in a handicap match would beat Tejano, and Tejano would officially become a Famous B client. And we would never really see Tejano again in Lucha Underground, because AAA would then basically separate themselves from Lucha Underground. So they would lose a lot of wrestlers because of this. They would, unfortunately. We then get what I truly believe is the greatest match to come out of Lucha Underground. The Hell of War match. Basically, a 3 stages of hell match. Winner of 2 or 3 falls. You would have the first fall be a first blood match. Second fall be a no disqualification match. And the third fall would be a medical evac match, which was basically an ambulance match. You put your opponent in the back of an ambulance, and that's what happens. You take it away, and whoever drives away, whoever's left standing is the winner. This match is truly what I believe to be Ultima Lucha's best match ever. The Dante Fox versus Killshot, who is now Swerve Strickland was Swerve Strickland WWE, and is now in AEW. So now you have this. This match was unbelievable. First Blood finally ended when they put Dante Fox through glass for Dante Fox to bleed. And then you would have Killshot get pinned in a no disqualification match. And then finally you would have Killshot throw Dante Fox off the stage. So there was a stage where they would have bands play, which was awesome. It really was very cool to see. Their first season was the best for the bands of Anita TTT. And you would have Mariachi El Bronx, who I really do like. I think I've actually been listening to them to build up to this review. So very cool bands would play there. And then you would have Killshot. So that was basically, they would have the stage on top of the arena, and they threw Dante Fox off of the arena, off the top of the arena, threw glass onto the concrete, basically, and load him in the ambulance. Killshot picks up the win. Oh man, that was one hell of a match. Probably one of my favorite matches ever. I got no problem saying that. You would then get Willie Mack winning a battle royal for a unique opportunity. Ooh. You would then get Ivelisse versus Katrina in a singles match to finally end their feud. Ivelisse would finally pick up the win over Katrina after basically 3 years of feuding. 3 years! God damn, that's a long blow-off. And then finally you get Marty the Moth Martinez versus Phoenix in a mask versus hair match. Now, Phoenix had started dating Melissa Santos, who is actually, I want to point out, Cage's wife in real life. She has since had a baby, and they're happily married, so shout out to them. But they had started dating in storyline, and Marty the Moth Martinez had an infatuation with Melissa Santos, and this would lead to Phoenix coming to her aid, her boyfriend in storyline, and would basically, they would decide it's either mask or hair. Marty the Moth Martinez had long flowing locks, and Phoenix wore a mask. So they weren't taking Phoenix's mask off. He was one of their biggest stars, their first ever Triple Crown champion, first person to hold the the Lucha Underground title, the Gift of the Gods, and the Trios tag titles. Phoenix would pick up the win after Mariposa kicked Marty the Moth Martinez down the stairs. Phoenix would pin him and would cut Marty the Moth Martinez's hair. We then move on to part 3. Sexy Star versus Taya Valkyrie. Now, Taya was a thorn in Sexy Star's side. She would actually cost Sexy Star the Lucha Underground title after Sexy Star pinned Matanza Cueto to win the title at Aztec Warfare. You would have the first ever and last ever, I believe, women's champion in Lucha Underground history. Sexy Star would then lose the title to Giant Mundo after Taya got involved, hitting her with a crutch and then brass knuckles. This would become a last luchadora standing match between her and Taya. Sexy Star would pick up the win, and we would never see Sexy Star again. Sexy Star will be blacklisted basically from the whole industry after trying to truly injure. I'm trying to remember who it was. Oh God, she was in Decay and Impact. It'll come to me later. She would try to break someone's arm, really, in a match because she didn't like her. And after that, Vampiro, who was one of the main bookers for Lucha Underground and AAA, looked at her and said, "You'll never work for me again." He called WWE, he called everyone he could, Impact, everyone, and basically said, "Do not book her. She is dangerous. She has tried to break people's arms in real life, and she is now." He would basically get her blacklisted from the industry. So this would be the last you would ever see a Sexy Star in Lucha Underground. We then move on to the Trios Championship match of the Reptile Tribe of Drago, Vibora, and Pindar. Pindar, Vibora, who is in AEW now as Luchasaurus. He is Luchasaurus in AEW. Would be a part of this. Drago would basically be feuding with the Reptile Tribe until he would finally lose a match where he had to join the Reptile Tribe and come back to his tribe from the Aztec days. They would hold on to the Trios Championships for a long time after beating basically Drago, Phoenix, and Aerostar. They would take the titles from them after Drago finally turned heel and joined the Reptile Tribe. You would have Dante Fox and Killshot join Willie Mack as his unique opportunity victory. Kind of. It was his unique opportunity. He would get a shot at the Trios titles, and you would have Killshot and Dante Fox, who just went to war with each other, join up and win the Trios titles with Willie the Mac. So this was a great match. It was fun. Dante Fox and Killshot and Willie Mack would pick up the Trios titles. And then you have a ladder match where the Gift of the Gods title. Now, this was originally supposed to be just a 7-way match earlier in the week, but you would then have Pentagon Dark and Son of Havoc each pin someone in a match at the same time to lead to a double fall, lead to a ladder match at Ultima Lucha Trace Part 3. Great match, really enjoyed this match. Pentagon Dark would pick up the win over Son of Havoc. So, Pentagon Dark is your new Gift of the Gods champion. Remember that. You would then get Matanza Cueto versus El Dragon Azteca in a steel cage. Matanza Cueto would pick up the win after defeating El Dragon Azteca because he would actually face Rey Mysterio and write Rey Mysterio off TV so Rey Mysterio could go back to WWE at this time. After this match, Black Lotus would be involved, Dario Cueto's muscle, and would turn on Dario Cueto, basically sending the Lotus Tribe after her. And one of the biggest parts of that after that was basically you would have Doku, who was Kairi Sane in WWE. That's the only big part from that you would get from this. You would then get Mil Muertes versus Cage and Jeremiah Crane for the Gods Gauntlet, for the Gauntlet of the Gods. Now, the Gauntlet of the Gods was said to give the holder the power of the gods, while the god would actually take you over. So, it was kind of a cool thing, but at the same time, you're looking at going, this is where they started to jump the shark and get stupid. Mil Muertes would win the match, but you would get the return of the Hunter. You would get the return of King Cuerno. King Cuerno would come back and would take away the gauntlet and would hide it, and that would lead to Season 4. You then get your supposed main event, a title versus career match. Prince Puma versus Johnny Mundo. So, Johnny Mundo had taken the title from Sexy Star and held on to it like Gollum with a fucking ring. He held on to that title and was not losing it through any part of Season 3 and was determined to end the career of Prince Puma, the one who he main evented the first episode of Lucha Underground with, which is cool to see. Prince Puma had since aligned himself with Vampiro to find a darker side to him, to beat Mil Muertes, to really come back as Prince Puma since losing to Rey Mysterio Jr. at Ultima Lucha 2. Prince Puma would win the match to become the first ever two-time Lucha Underground champion. But after this, Dario Cueto announced that Pentagon was cashing in his Gift of the Gods title because he made a valid argument, which I assume was, give me the match or I break your arm. Alright, so Pentagon Dark cashes in, defeats Prince Puma, and Prince Puma has to leave Lucha Underground. He would leave Lucha Underground to go sign with NXT, and Pentagon Dark is your new champion going into Season 4. This was unbelievable. That was the moment that they landed after jumping the shark. Alright, it's over. They should have ended it there, but they come back for Season 4. I was excited for Season 4. But at the same time, it just wasn't the same. They only gave him 18 episodes, and only made Ultima Lucha 2 episodes. So it was nothing really big. Let's go to Ultima Lucha. So I mentioned Jeremiah Crane. Jeremiah Crane was at the time dating Ivelisse, would turn on her to try and get with Katrina, who was with Mil Muertes, who loved Rey Fenix. So you would have Jeremiah Crane, who is in Impact right now. He was their Impact World Champion. He has been all around the world as a hardcore wrestler, so shout out to him. You would get Cobra Moon, Daga, and Jeremiah Snake, former Jeremiah Crane, after being buried by Ivelisse at a triple threat. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Grave Consequences for the gift of for the gauntlet. Was it the Gauntlet? I believe it was the Gauntlet. So the Gauntlet would go to Muertes, who would then, it would be stolen by Aerostar, and then the Gauntlet would end up to Johnny Mundo's hands. We'll get up to that later on. But so you would have Jeremiah Snake join up with the Reptile Tribe after being risen from the dead. So the Reptile Tribe would win the Trios titles and would go on to defend them at Ultima Lucha Quattro against Sammy Guevara, Exolicious, and Ivelisse, who have all ended up in AEW. Just want to point that out. And then you would also have them defend it. It would be a triple threat elimination match with the Rabbit Tribe of the White Rabbit, Paul London, and El Bunny, who is actually El Torito in WWE. I am not making this shit up. The White Rabbit was Karrion Kross. So the Rabbit Tribe would be eliminated first, and then the Reptile Tribe would then eliminate Ivelisse, and the Reptile Tribe is your last ever Trios champions. You would then get Taya versus Ricky Mundo after Ricky Mundo ruined Taya's wedding by allowing the monster Matanza Cueto to come in and basically beat the shit out of everybody in the wedding, which was hilarious because they would have a wedding on TV, and you would have Famous B officiating, and you would have Famous B going, "I now pronounce you man," and what the fuck is that? And Monster Matanza Cueto would come out and just beat the shit out of everyone. It was one of the funniest moments of Lucha Underground, I guarantee you. So anyway, Ricky Mundo unleashed the Monster Matanza Cueto because he had fallen in love with Johnny Mundo after joining the Worldwide Underground. Yeah, it was a weird storyline to say the least. Taya would pick up the win in a 4-minute match. We then get Son of Havoc versus Killshot in a mask versus mask match. Now, Dante Fox would leave Lucha Underground for a while and sign with MLW, who would actually become a partner of Lucha Underground later on. Just want to point that out. So you would have Dante Fox leave. Who would be Trios champions with Willie and Killshot? Well, they announced that Aztec Warfare, where Pentagon Dark would be defending his title, would lead to the next person. The first two entrants would be Willie the Mac and Killshot. So whoever entered next would logically be their new Trios champions. Trios championship partner. And it was Son of Havoc. Son of Havoc was given the titles, basically, and would become a 2-time Trios champion. My God. So Killshot basically hated that. He didn't respect Son of Havoc, and this turned into a feud to last all of Lucha Underground Season 4, to where finally, at Ultima Lucha Night 1 main event, it would be Son of Havoc versus Killshot in a mask versus mask match. You would actually have Killshot say his real name, Isaiah Swerve Strickland, and Killshot would then demask and would run off. The reason he was wearing a mask is because he left his brothers for dead in Afghanistan. Yeah, I need another drink. Need to keep the throat parched, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty. We then move on to your final episode of Ultima Lucha, of Lucha Underground, which was Ultima Lucha Quattro Night 2. Now, for the whole season, Fenix had been buried by Mil Muertes, and Mil Muertes basically shoved Katrina off to the side. So, Katrina would then fall off a building and die, as being written off for TV. You would then have Aerostar bring back Fenix with Katrina's life force, because Katrina was technically a ghost this whole time. I kind of get why it was canceled after this. Fenix would basically turn evil because of Katrina's life force was evil. And after bringing Phoenix back, Phoenix would be evil and would then embark on a feud against his friends in a 2 out of 3 falls match against his former friend El Dragon Azteca Jr. This would be a cool match. Phoenix would win this match and would go on to be the only only undefeated person at Ultima Lucha after beating El Dragon Azteca Jr. in a 2 out of 3 falls match where Melissa Santos would actually turn heel. And so she wouldn't be around to announce the rest of the show. So who would they get to announce? Well, no one else but Sol Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero's daughter, which was awesome. You would have, I think it was Famous B come in, and she would say, no one messes with a Guerrero. Chavo Guerrero would make his return to the company and would actually attack Famous B, causing them to beat the shit out of Famous B and hit a couple. They would hit the Guerrero Splash, which was awesome to see. Shout out to Eddie Guerrero. May that great man rest in peace. So, after this, you get Willie Mack versus Mil Muertes. Willie Mack had won an opportunity at the Gift of the Gods and would win a battle royal to choose who he wanted to eliminate from the 7-way match. He chose Mil Muertes. This would lead to a feud for them for basically Ultima Lucha in a death match, which was basically a steel cage match. Mil Muertes was undefeated at Ultima Lucha going in. He was 3-0 and would lose this match to Willie Mack. That pissed me off. I figured he would be their Undertaker and have a streak to go on to basically as long as they were around. But they decided to give that to Phoenix, and Phoenix became 4-0 and would be the only undefeated person in Ultima Lucha ever. Willie Mack would defeat Mil Muertes. We then go Johnny Mundo versus Matanza Cueto in the Sacrifice to the Gods match. Now, let me explain why Ultima Lucha Underground Season 4 sucked. Here's why. Because they got rid of Dario Cueto, basically. They got rid of Dario Cueto in Season 3. He would be shot at the end of Ultima Lucha, at the end of Lucha Underground 3. And he would call his father. His father would show up, and he was revealed he was the one who called the hit out on Dario. And Dario would basically be announced dead, and they would replace him with his father, Dario Cueto Sr. Dario Cueto Sr. would come in and would basically make his son a god by sacrificing the soul of Matanza to the gods, letting him fully become a god. So throughout the whole Season 4, they would have Matanza Cueto basically make the sacrifices to his brothers, the gods, and they would eliminate a lot of wrestlers like Jack Evans, basically the whole roster of the crew, and anyone who they really didn't need. Such as J&J Security would actually make an appearance in this and would be sacrificed to the gods. Not Jamie Noble, the other one. So, Johnny Mundo, deciding to get revenge for his wedding, decides he's going to be the next Sacrifice to the Gods match, and gets the gauntlet from Aerostar and King Cuerno, and beats Matanza Cueto. After this, he would return the gauntlet to Aerostar and would actually turn face and would go out as a face in the company, which was awesome to see. You then get your main event of Pentagon Dark versus Mario the Moth Martinez, your champion, in a Cero Miedo match. Now, Pentagon Dark was your champion all throughout Lucha Underground until Mario the Moth Martinez won the Gift of the Gods. He would then cash it in right after Pentagon Dark had a match, and Pentagon Dark would lose the title to Mario the Moth Martinez, and Pentagon Dark would then win a number 1 contenders match. Now, this would also lead to the debut of Chelsea Green in Lucha Underground, who would be Mario the Moth's kind of weird girlfriend. And it was kind of cool to see, but still weird. So Pentagon Dark would win the title from Mario the Moth Martinez in a hard-fought Cero Miedo match. Blood everywhere. But Jake Strong, who won the Gift of the Gods title, who is now Jake Hagar in AEW and former World Heavyweight Champion in WWE. Not making this shit up. Jake Strong would cash in, beat Pentagon Dark in 42 seconds, and become your last Lucha Underground champion. He would then kill Matanza Cueto, kill Black Lotus, get in the limo, and you would have Matanza Cueto Sr., or you would have Dario Cueto Sr. in there, and you would have all these people in there. It would be revealed that Vampiro has a master, and Vampiro's master would be in there as well. There would be a strange figure smoking a cigar, and he leans forward and goes, "We're coming in," and he leans out of the shadows and goes, "If anyone has a problem for that, I got some bad news for you." Wade Barrett would actually make his return to wrestling after this. He had been gone since being released from WWE in 2015, and would make his return in 2019, and then would become an announcer for WWE. So, kind of cool to see Wade Barrett's return in Lucha Underground. And that is the whole history of Lucha Underground. It was then canceled. The roster would go away. It was caused by budget cuts, which is funny because Mark Burnett doesn't seem like he's hurting for money. And basically, you would have Lucha Underground go away. The contracts some people signed were basically lifetime contracts that they would sue and get out of, such as King Cuerno and Ivelisse, who would then go on to AEW and WWE. Most of the roster has ended up either in AEW or WWE, and 1% in Impact. So, Lucha Underground was something fun. It was something different. For the first 3 seasons, it was awesome. Halfway through season 3, they got a little crazy with the tournaments and had a 40-episode season. Just keep drinking. And they would basically kind of just jump the shark. But for those 2.5 to 3 seasons, it was unbelievable. It was something different. It was to the point where a lot of people, including former WWE and WCW head writer Vince Russo, would say, if I had to attach my wagon to have someone go head-to-head with WWE, it would be Lucha Underground. That's what it would be, no question. And they did it, man. I became a believer. I watched the first 2 seasons, and I loved every second of it. I watched season 3. It was great. Pentagon Dark finally becoming champion. Having an amazing match with Vampiro. Vampiro returning to the ring after so many years away from WCW. Basically, after 10 years away from the ring, Vampiro comes back and has a match of the year, can it? This show was something else. It helped make wrestling fans. You would see people in the temple as basically people you wouldn't expect to see. You would see Shaul Guerrero. You would see Chavo Guerrero. You would see Gabriel Iglesias, Snoop Dogg. You would see them all as fans or as competitors. It was something different. If they were to bring the show back, I would tune in a heartbeat. Even though season 4 wasn't what I expected, it was still great. And there's still a lot I haven't even gone over for Lucha Underground. It was awesome. It had everything. And its one problem was it soared too close to the sun and ended up fucking itself. If I had to give Lucha Underground this grade, it would be an A grade. Not an A+, so close to an A+, but that last season takes it away from an A+, even though it had great matches. I just wish it got a chance to go one more step further and end the story. Lucha Underground. It's a promotion everyone should watch. Truly, in my opinion, it is worth $1,000. If that is how much I would pay to watch this. It's only on Amazon. You can get on Amazon Prime for $20 a season. So you're paying $80. I bought it years ago. Once it came out, second I could, I bought it. It's one of those. It's fun and it's awesome. Lucha Underground. That's my review of Lucha Underground, ladies and gentlemen. And now we're reading from the Book of Rules. A message from Talent Relations to the superstars. While tattoos have always been acceptable in WWE, They are now strongly encouraged. Corey Graves needs more guests for his WWE Network series, Superstar Inc. Sincerely, Talent Relations. A reading from the Book of Rules. Now, there is going to be no Battle Droid of the Week, and I do have the Drink of the Week. I'll go into it after this. There is no Battle Droid of the Week. There is just sincere thank yous this week. There truly is, because I can't do this without all of you. All the people who have listened. You guys have been awesome, and I just want to say thank you to you and a couple other people who I'm going to list right now. To my grandparents, awesome. Thank you so much. You've been great supporters. My grandparents and my step-grandparents, thank you. And to those who have passed on, I know you got the best seat in the house, and I know you're watching with a smile on your face. So I miss you guys, and I wish you were here. To my friends who have passed on, same thing. I wish you were here, but you got the best seat in the house. To my parents, my mom and my dad, you guys have been my ultimate supporters through this, so thank you. I can't thank you enough. You guys have truly helped giving me inspiration. To my step-parents, my stepmom, my stepdad. You guys have also always been behind me, and I thank you so much for all the love you guys have given me. This has been amazing. And now I'm going to say thank you to a few friends who have truly followed me. My buddy Paulie in Indiana. Shout out to you, man. You helped. You were one of the few people who were really on my side when I was just trying to become something great. And to my buddy Tom Grassi. Tom Grassi, I followed him on YouTube. He's hilarious, and he's a great person. I actually emailed him when I was first starting, and he truly helped me become better at what I wanted to be through this podcast. So shout out to Tom Grassi. And I also want to thank my buddy Rodney Kersey. Rodney, you really helped me. You were one of the people who I would talk wrestling with. You would help me become a podcaster, basically, because you were the one who was basically saying, dude, you gotta start a podcast. You gotta start a wrestling podcast. You'd be awesome at it. You can talk about wrestling as much as you want. And he basically encouraged me to start Wrestling Made Simple. So, Rodney, shout out to you as well, brother. To the people I met at WrestleMania who've become friends, shout out to you guys. And shout out to wrestling. This has truly been something I fell in love with, and I look forward to doing every week. I don't know if this is something I'm going to keep doing for another 100 episodes. I don't know, but I hope I can. I truly hope I can. This is something I enjoy going to every week. It's truly a stress relief for me. I can just sit down and just talk with people who apparently want to hear me talk. Lord knows why. But yeah, you guys like hearing me talk, so as long as you keep listening, I'll keep talking. If you don't want me to keep talking, then stop listening, and I'll shut up. In the words of Ron White, but I think it's time for a drink of the week. So thank you very much. You guys have earned this. Thank you to everyone. So you have earned the True Jedi, and now it is time for a drink of the week. I think it's time for a little champagne from a WWE Hall of Famer, Snoop Dogg. Oh, here's to you. Thank you so much. I've been the big guy. This has been champagne from Snoop Dogg. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great week in wrestling. I'll be back next week with episode 101. Wrestling 101. This has been Wrestling Made Simple. Have a good one.